Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show. Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. Our guest today, the first thing I want to say is, and sometimes I think this is awkward. I want to say, Ronny, thank you for your service. I know that you served in the military. You played in the band in the military. No disrespect. Making it through the military is more important than you playing right now. I'm happy to see you. I know things that you've went through. I have cousins, relatives, and friends who have been through all of that. So once again, thank you for your service. Hope it all went well. So here's my first question, which is, I think kind of odd, but how did you in high school, you're playing music. How'd you get to the military?
I was in college at the time and I was majoring as a classical guitarist. And a new instructor came in, and he was running the jazz program. So I auditioned for the jazz band, passed that. And we used to go out to lunch together and just talk. And and I didn't know this at the time, but he was a guest soloist for the Navy Commodores, and he had done that for a little while. I guess somewhere in his career he had done that. And he said, how do you like classical guitar? He said, do you think that you could make a living off of it? I don't know. I'm just trying to make it through school right now.
Right.
He said, you ever think about auditioning for one of the military bands? So I said, no, I didn't. I actually didn't know anything about it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I know some folks, maybe we can give them a call and see what you think. I took the audition, passed the audition, and this was my senior year. And the band director who auditioned me said, "Well, you did well on your audition, so let's get you going if you want." Again, this is my senior year. My senior year, spring, I left and went to the military.
Really?
It, yeah. So pretty much that's how that happened.
Did you have other options? Were you considering, let's say, going into the workforce? I guess my thing is, and I'm gonna guess we're around the same age. I think I would not, it wouldn't be first on my list, let's say, to go to the military. So what made you really choose that? Was it just because you had the opportunity to play in the band?
Yeah, doing music full time is what I wanted to do, since forever, I guess. And while I was in school, I was working full time and I worked for the federal government at the time. So I was working and paying my tuition by working at the
Hmm.
federal government and going to school, majoring in music at the same time. So it was a choice of continuing federal government work, going to school, and not seeing what other options were out there. And I knew, um, after inquiring about how the band system worked and that sort of thing, um, it just opened up doors for other things. And other than the day to day, going to school, day to day, going to work, that sort of thing. And I'm glad I did because my first assignment was in Europe. So I don't know if I would have gotten to Europe. Maybe I would have, but I don't know if I would have gotten to Europe with the schedule current lifestyle that I was doing, school and federal government. I
Hmm.
I didn't really see much of, anything happening. So I just wanted to take a left turn, see what else is out there.
So when you get in and get started and you're beginning your musical career, what's going on? Are you just sitting behind and taking classes? Are you just with the band and you're with the band all the time? What's your day-to-day schedule like?
Your day-to-day schedule is uh, get up in the morning, rehearse, because you prepare for different concerts. So let's say your concert for spring. You're on the road, you're traveling, you're doing concerts from spring through summer. And I know we did a lot of concerts. So prior to that, you're preparing for the spring and summer concerts. You get back, you're preparing for the holiday concerts. So it's practice, rehearse. That's your day to day practice, rehearse,
Wow.
and then do concerts. And it's the same as, the full-time musician lifestyle now. So it's no different.
Wow. I just don't get me wrong, I'm the guy who brings you on. I'm just the announcer, I'm the MC, but I can't imagine 5, 6 days a week for hours just rehearsing and practicing. But then again, you also got to travel.
Hmm.
Where did you go? Did you look forward to things like that? Was that a
I
fun part
did.
of it?
Oh yeah. It was fun. It got a little tiresome though because you only got 365 days in the year, and if you're
Right.
doing more concerts than that, then it can get a little tiresome. But you get breaks in between. So it's not I mean, you gotta love it to do it. I don't think if I didn't enjoy doing it that I would have done it for 35 years.
Wow. Wow. Um, you mentioned that you started out doing classical music.
Hmm.
I'm not making a judgment, but I've talked to several other musicians who started out classical and are no longer classical. What is it about the what you do now, or what is it about the classical part that just doesn't seem to linger with you and you want to change up, so to speak?
I found jazz was a little bit more challenging for me. Um, Getting the concept down of soloing and comping, being an accomplishment or accompanying someone playing or, your duty and I, had the opportunity to do like big band. So you're working with horns, you're working with different instrumentalists. I just found that to be more exciting than classical. Just um, I just found it to be more, challenging, more exciting to me, more to learn. It was
Hmm.
a lot to learn.
Was it?
So,
Who were your influences as you were growing up?
um, I guess at going way back, it was George Benson, Wes Montgomery, Joe Pass. And those things changed as not to say, they still don't influence me because they do,
Hmm.
but, the more folks I began to listen to, I don't know if it was their personal influences, and I'm pretty sure it was their personal influences that influenced their playing. And it kind of opened the door for me to listen to other folks and the things that they were doing, how they developed themselves, or they're playing, their art form. So it opened the doors to like um, Pat Martino, Chuck Loeb, Vic Jarris. There's a list of them. Tal Farlow. Oh man, because I began to listen to how other players were doing what they did,
Mm-hmm.
and I would try to emulate their styles and their concepts of how they approached um, playing over chords, playing over one chord, or playing over different chord structures and that sort of thing. So, you know, it like I said, it's a learning experience because there's so much, so many chord patterns. There were, um, different chords in themselves. The approach to those, the alterations, the not to get in too deep with theory and all that good stuff, but approaching those sort of things. Like I said, it was a challenge and it was fun.
When do you have time to practice, to rehearse from your influencers? I mean, if you're in the military band, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, you're not necessarily playing George Benson and Joe Pass and Pat Martino. So when did
Oh
you
yeah.
get, are you?
Oh yeah. Well, when I first started in the band system, and it's evolved over the years. When I first started, we had, different bands. You've got marching bands, you've got symphonic bands, concert bands, rock bands, jazz bands, all different styles. And being a guitarist, I had had to work on different styles of playing. It could go from country, rock, back to the George Benson thing. And like I said, it was now George Benson. I didn't say this first, but George Benson, that style was my what I like.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked on that probably more than anything.
Right.
But the rest of it, I had to build chops up to the country, um, the rock. You're using different pieces of equipment and that sort of thing. So, it's a learning experience, and I'm talking about the military. That was a learning experience each day.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get better at any of that stuff unless you practice.
Right, right.
So there's no way around that. So,
How many hours a day were you practicing?
um, oh, I was doing a lot of practice back then. I would practice maybe no less than 4 hours a day, no less than 4 hours, because I knew I had to improve my skills. I had to learn things quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that became my lifestyle. Um, that became my fun. That became, my duty. That became me,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
How many songs did they throw at you between, let's say, concerts? I mean, let's say you do one concert and you're with the jazz band, and the next time the jazz band is going to perform, are they giving you eight new songs and you've got to learn eight songs in, I don't know, 90 days, 120 days?
Well, the jazz that we did, we a lot of it, it wasn't you didn't have to memorize it because we um like the jazz combo, you open up a real book, you read the charts right then and there. Whoever the band, that could have been the drummer, could have been a sax player, could have been keyboard player who was the leader, could have been the guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
Would call out the songs and you flip the page and you read it. And after doing it for, so many years, you begin to memorize a lot of those songs. And at the same time, if you wanted to improve on those songs, you're back to the shed practicing, trying to develop what you want to say or play the next time you played that song. So it's a constant evolvement of learning, reading, improving. that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's take a moment here to listen to some of the stuff that you've done from our good friend, guest on the Jazz Flyte Podcast, Ronny Smith. Here is Feel on the show. Our guest is Ronny Smith. We just heard a song called Feel. He's our guest on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I think most of you know who I am. I'm Darrell Scott. Well, let's talk about how did the career begin? So you're in the military for 30 plus years, and all of a sudden you decide, I'm going to go out on my own and do my own thing. I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to do everything. How did that decision come about?
Um, well, I did that during the military years. I started writing stuff that I enjoyed writing, and then made a decision that, okay, instead of just writing, let's put this thing on cassette tape at the time, put it on, uh, a CD and that sort of thing, and throw it out there and see what happens. Um, well, yeah, and that's been a learning process too, learning the business of recording and how to, get the funds together to do it and that sort of thing. So I made that a life goal as well to after doing the first one, I was like, okay, I like this. Let's make this a career.
Hmm.
Let's do this. This is what I like to do. So each each year or 2 years, I would work, um, you know, specifically for what I was going to do the next year as far as recording. So
Hmm.
I worked last year, example, I would work last year developing, the music, getting funding together and all that good stuff, planning out, my budget and all that good stuff so that I can be prepared for the following year to, produce something. And that became a lifestyle.
Hmm.
So I did that again while working, and I was going to school, trying to finish up my degrees uh, and also playing. So all of that was became a lifestyle in itself. Um, and until I, you know, got to the point where I could drop something and get away, like from retire from the military, retire from working, because that was my sole, all of that was my sole reason or the way I developed the funds to do it.
Hmm.
So that was my plan to, get enough funding so that I could keep this thing sustained.
How have you adjusted to this new way of doing things, let's say? I always revel at the fact that there used to be a situation where you'd all meet in a studio, you'd sit down, maybe have some conversation, you go over things, and you could feel the energy from the other participants on the track. Now, everybody I talk to has a studio in their home. They've got soundproofing. They all play. I talked to somebody who not only plays guitar or saxophone, but plays bass and plays keyboard. Because I always go, if you're the only one in the room, how are you putting a song together and how are you putting the bass line in and how are you putting this in? Because Daryl, I play everything. So then it's like, okay, so then what comes first? Is it the drum track that comes first and then you add in the sax solo and then you add in the guitar? I, and I get why it happens. Everybody's an independent now. Trust me, I understand that, and that's a conversation for 18 straight days. Have you adjusted to that? Are you still involved in making that transition? What's going on with you?
It hasn't been a transition for me. That's the way I've
No,
always done
you've always done it
it.
that way? Wow.
Yeah, I've always done it that way. Because it was going into studios, and I mean, nothing against those engineers and that they're perfect. Not perfect, but they're great at what they do. But that can get a little expensive.
Yeah, right.
Um, s- so it's like I figured that, man, let me learn to do this myself, start cutting out the middleman. I still have to go back to engineers who can do a better job at mixing, but I try to get it to the point of what I want it to sound like, or go back to the engineers to do the mastering and that sort of thing. But I'm trying to cut them out. This is my third semester at Berkeley, and I'd figure, okay, I'm tired of going to paying money to the engineers to do that. Let me learn to do this
Right.
myself.
Yes, yes.
So, I like I said, I'm involved now, trying to get my professional certificate from Berkeley as an engineer. So, not that I'll, become totally proficient at. I hope to,
Right,
but I'm pretty sure I'm still going to need some folks. But at least I can get it to a better point,
right.
because they do a great job, but sometimes it's still not the way I know I'd
Hmm.
like to hear it.
Right.
So if I can get it to the way I'd like to hear it, then I can communicate in their language a little bit better
Hmm.
and say, this is what I'm looking for. Here's the example and that sort of thing. So,
Speaking of Berkeley, so life is just so circular. Do you know, um, so I'm guessing Larry Simpson was gone. He was the provost. Do you know John Kellogg? Um, John teaches a class up there. I can't remember what it is. He's a professor. Eric Gould talks about piano. Trying to get a hold of Terry Lynn Carrington. It's kind of like my second home. When I first started this show, I had four guys on from Berkeley. And now that I think about it, Walter Beasley. Um, and that seems to be a very interesting fraternity of teachers, and you all have the same, I don't know what to call it, but the same feel of what you want to do. Um, how was, you tell me your experience at Berkeley?
um, I find it really helpful. I mean, there are things that I'm learning, things that I don't know about. I think the atmosphere puts you in, um, folks that are tuned into music and the business and, what's going on in their field of study. Like it could be things, I don't know, like I had learned, I'm taking a course now, it has to do with producing beats and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
There's programs and that sort of thing that I've never even heard of. So it's like being in that atmosphere and picking up things that I probably wouldn't have heard about, wouldn't have probably researched on my own, um, that I'm learning just from being in those surroundings. So it's real helpful.
No, just
Yeah.
from the professors that I've met, talked to, and interviewed, I think I could learn how to do something up there, even though despite the fact that some of them are friends of mine and they have other stories about me, which we care not talk about on this show.
Yeah.
And speaking of music, let's go to another song that you've done. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest is Ronny Smith. This is People on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. You are listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. We appreciate you listening. Our guest today is Mr. Ronny Smith. He's a guitarist, done a lot of things, has had a very interesting career. It's always, to me, the journey is always the real process and how you get there. You spent some time in the military, 30 plus years. What do you maintain the same discipline that you had while you were in the military and what you're doing now?
hmm I do. It's I guess because I did it for so long that sorry, let me send that to voicemail. So I did it for so long that I learned to live like that. So
Right. I'm sure.
yeah, so it's this. I don't find myself doing anything different. I get up in the morning. I'm thankful that I have a gym to go to. I get up and go to the gym, and that starts my day. I call that as getting my blood going so I can
Hmm.
think, during the day. I come back, and I'm just letting you know an average day. I come back and I'll either work on an assignment, work on, developing a new song, I practice, and that goes. So my day would usually start maybe like 6:30, and I try to quit um, probably around 4:35, 5:30. But that's my normal day, and that usually goes from Monday through Friday. So, um, like I said, that routine of practicing, writing, working on like a Berkeley assignment, and that takes my whole day. Um, so I don't feel I've retired from anything because I
Right.
work harder now
Now, yes,
than
yes. Know that feeling quite well. Yes.
yeah.
It seems as though people say retirement and you should travel and you should do this and you can do that. But once you start, and I will call it a side hustle,
hmm
the side hustle takes over. And I think
hmm
in the short time that we've talked, it appears as though that you're a perfectionist. I can't do stuff halfway. It's got to be
hmm
right. And in order for it to be right, sometimes you got to work a little harder. You got to do a little more. You want to present all the right things. You want to do all of that. So yeah, I'm that's an adjustment I have not even gotten close to, but you do what you can.
hmm
So
Yeah.
when you're done with your workday, how are you relaxing? What are you doing? I know you go to the gym.
I take my iPad, which I have here. I take my iPad and I look for a movie on Netflix or Paramount Plus or Max, and I sit down and do absolutely nothing. I become a vegetable.
Okay. So
And
go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead.
So I was going to ask you in your movie watching things, what's your favorite movie? Not necessarily of all time, maybe just of late over the last, I don't know, 60, 90 days.
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. And I know if my wife was standing behind me, she would start laughing because she always comes to me and she says, "Which movie are you watching?" I don't know the name of this. So I'm just watching.
Right.
So, so I don't know. I look for um new movies that are out, different folks that I want to see. I think like I love westerns. So I look for I don't know. I think they've got a new uh whatever's new. Don't ask me about names because I don't
Okay.
know because I just start watching.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you a question. It's kind of silly. It's a comedy, yet it's a western. Have you ever watched Blazing Saddles?
Oh man, that used to be one of my favorites.
50 years, 50 years this year. And from what I heard, only because I've seen it 1,081,000 times, they're going to release it in the theater so people that haven't seen it have an opportunity to see it. Even though I go, people are going to, there's too much in there that we let happen, but was funny.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was on a buddy. I made a comment about Lily Von Stoop. which led to like 8 pages of comments about the movie,
Uh-huh.
and there's just quote after quote after quote after quote after quote. And the other funny thing to me is, I think the only person alive from the movie is Mel Brooks and the sheriff's assistant, whose name I cannot remember. My favorite movie of all time. If I'm feeling depressed or I need something to laugh about, I'll put it on. My wife watched it with me for the first time, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
6, 8 months ago, and she told me to shut up because I can quote. I can quote every line in the movie. I can.
That's a lot of watching.
I said, oh yeah. And then I don't know if you've ever seen the Count Basie band. We saw them this past, I don't know, 4 months ago.
Uh-huh.
And if you remember the scene when Sheriff Bart, see, I've seen it too much. When Sheriff Bart is riding through the desert to go to the town, there's an orchestra in the desert. That's the Count Basie band. So in this
Mm.
concert, they play that song, and I'm just acting a fool, and everybody's looking around going, "What is wrong with him?" I go, "That's from the greatest movie of all time," and it's just that, and they have fun playing it. So it was really good. So
Mm.
it is. I always find it interesting, the life of a musician. You've traveled.
Mm.
Where what's the best place you've been to?
Um, let's see, probably Germany. I really like Germany. Yeah.
So Germany, it's the food.
Yeah. They've got Germany has and we used to do these quite often in different towns. They've got their beer fest, they've got food, some that I never heard of, but I ate it. And Wiener schnitzels and you name it, man. I enjoyed it. It's a festive town, and the folks. I I I never met anybody who was unfriendly.
Hmm.
Maybe the military put us in friendly places, but um, I enjoyed it. I went back a second or third time. I've been back 3 times so far. I really like it.
Nice. All right, as we get ready to wrap this up, tell me what you got coming up. What's new? New music, new projects. What's going on with you?
I don't. Are you familiar with my new CD?
No, I just got the 3 songs you sent me.
Oh no, there's a new CD that was just released in April. I don't know if you could see that.
I got to
Oh,
put it a little
let's
higher.
put it.
Tilt it where it's in the it's yeah, that's better. I,
Yeah, that's the new CD. It was just
okay.
released in April. I'll be sure to get you a copy of that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's been doing pretty good streaming. Of course, CD sales are okay, but no one's buying CDs anymore. They don't even make CD players in your laptops or anything like that. Everything's online in the cloud.
Yeah.
Um, so that's doing pretty well. It's been doing, and I haven't checked this week to see how it's doing, in the charts and that sort of thing. But it's for a release that's been in April, and where are we in July?
Yeah.
And it's hanging in there. I'm okay. I'm okay
Okay.
with it. So it's got some really good cuts. I use a lot of musicians. We recorded the way we were talking about
Right. Uh-huh.
different musicians. I've used vocalists, horn sections, different sax players, different bass players, different drummers, that sort of thing, according to their style. And before we started talking today, I started working, not just started, but I don't know. I might even have a release ready for next year. I've been working on some straight ahead songs
Oh,
and
okay.
gospel songs and just things that um and stuff that I like doing.
Hmm.
So I don't know if I don't know how well it do, how well it will do, but I'm just gonna release me.
I know the feeling, sir. Let me do this. I will say, whatever you have coming out, if you can get it to me, I will put it on our social media so that all of our fans and listeners and viewers can see it, and we'll do our
Hmm.
best to put your music out there. Do you have a social media presence?
I do. I'll get you that information as well.
Okay.
Facebook,
Are you on
I,
Instagram?
Instagram,
Okay.
yep,
All right. All right.
Instagram, um, Twitter, you name them. I wish I had more time uh, to constantly put something out
Right. Oh
and
yeah.
keep it
Mm-hmm.
going. But maybe one day, I tried to get my daughter but she's doing her own thing, so she don't have time to do that for me.
Right. I get it. Sometimes getting the younger folks to work on I don't necessarily like that music. I'm not asking you to like the music. I'm just asking you to get it out to social media. That's all I want you to do.
Right, right.
Mine helps me a little bit, but you try
Oh,
to grow,
good.
you try to do what you can. Uh,
Hmm.
your music's good. We'll do what we can, and let's carry
Thank
on
you.
this conversation. Every now and then we'll stay in touch. If you get to Cleveland, let's hook up and have a beverage. I always say a
All
beverage
right,
because
keep me posted on the concerts and that sort
I
of thing
I
in
can do
the
that.
area.
We're starting to develop some things here with that also.
Great.
Ronnie Smith, this has been a pleasure. I appreciate you more coming from that military background and getting to this point because I think that's an altogether different process. And there's an altogether different discipline. And it's just kind of a different world. Everybody else is, well, I had a teacher and I did this. I'm trained classically and I've done this. You're traveling across the country being in a very important band. So we appreciate the comments, sir. Best of luck to you. Keep us going on with what you're doing, and we'll do the best we can to do what we got.
Sounds good.
All right, sir. You've been listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm Darrell Scott. We will talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.